So you are a Christian,
Yes, but not confessionally Christian.
not confessedly?
Confessionally, yeah. So my Christianity is not about beliefs, as I say, like confessing certain beliefs.
Oh.
For me, Christianity is about a way of being in the world, a way of loving, a way of interacting with others. And so I'm really interested in Christianity as a way of like existing with one another.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And so do you figure out God in your own mind when you do your philosopher thinking? Are you figuring out God?
No, because yeah, in one sense, the word God is interesting because God, by definition, is a word that describes something that cannot be figured out. It's a weird word because it's the one word to describe something that is so vast and infinite that we cannot grasp it.
So are you trying to learn his ways in your mind?
My interest is in the particularly Christian notion of God as a God that dies. What does that mean? So I am interested in the different concepts of God. So there's basically God as a supreme being. So God as a supreme being is mighty, all strong, all powerful. Then there's the mystical God who is beyond being. So the mystics talk about a God who transcends all of our understanding. So we cannot even, every time we speak of God, we have to also remind ourselves that what we're saying is not correct. They call it denomination. So to name God is to nominate God, and you have to immediately denominate God by saying that God is love, but not like I understand it as an Irish guy from the 20th century. And then there's the existential philosophers. They say God is the ground of being. God is the name we give to something that we cannot grasp because it's the ground out of which everything arises. And so these are different ways of understanding the word God.
And you try to figure that out in your own mind? You philosophers like you try to sit back and figure all that out in your own mind to make it make sense, or what?
Yeah, although I'm particularly interested in this notion that's in Paul, where he has this notion of God as I say, this crucified Christ. So I try to figure out what is the meaning of that. As a Christian philosopher, I'm interested in what does it mean to affirm the crucified Christ and make sense of that. Yeah.
And you try to figure that out.
Yeah, it makes sense.
You sit
of it.
back and think about that. Oh, I wonder.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Do you have perfect peace?
Funnily enough, for an Irish guy, because we're fighters, but I've always been very relaxed. My dad was a very chilled guy, so thankfully I've got a very peaceful vibe.
And do you have perfect peace?
I mean, I don't have anxiety or anything like that. So I don't do meditation or anything, but I feel very zen. I'm a very zen guy.
And so, but you wouldn't say that you have perfect peace.
I don't know. I feel like I probably could.
Do you have anger?
I'm not a very angry guy. I mean, I suppose maybe if you killed my cat, I don't have a cat. Maybe if you bought me a cat and killed it,
Right.
I'd maybe be angry at you.
And so, do you get angry sometimes?
What's that?
Do you get angry sometimes?
I guess so. Yeah.
You do?
I'm guessing so. Yeah.
You're not sure?
Yeah, I would get angry. I'm trying to think the last time I was angry. I get angry at some things that are going on politically in the world. Yes, I guess so. There's a lot of, but I try to avoid getting into a politics of opposition. I hate oppositional thinking where you create an enemy. I try to see everybody as a neighbor, not an enemy.
How do you, as a philosopher, how do you deal with that emptiness? You know, sometimes when you're alone, you feel like something's missing within yourself, something's wrong. How do you figure that out?
Yeah. So for me, that's central to Christianity. Yeah, is that for me, all of us our natural state is to find some way to fill some gap, what Pascal called the God-shaped hole.
Right.
And we frantically, whether it's from money or fame or religion, try to fill that gap. What I do with my religious community is look at how Christianity helps us to enjoy that lack, to enjoy the conflict, the sacrifice, to not try to fill it, to be comfortable with that space that you're talking about. So that's very central to my work, is we can actually enjoy not having, not there's a frenetic pursuit of things that we actually have to be freed from.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you can be comfortable with that emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
You have a PhD in post-structural thought.
Oh, yes. I
What
do.
is post-structural thought?
Structure.
And how do you get a PhD in it?
Yeah. So I went to a university called Queen's University in Ireland. And post-structural thought is really, so it's in continental philosophy, and it's the study of language and the study of the underlying structures. So for example, see in chess, I don't know if you play chess, I play chess, and the pieces all represent different characters.
Right.
But if you lose one of the pieces, you can just take a button and put it on the board, and it will represent a pawn or whatever. Yeah. Post-structuralism and structuralism are like, with something like Christianity, there's all of the imagery, but what's important is the grammar. What's important is the underlying rules. So what I study with Christianity or with any myth or story is what's the underlying truth. So for example, in Christianity, I would say the underlying structure is a critique of scapegoat mechanisms. So whenever you look at Christianity, there's this idea that we take our lack, our darkness, our hatred of others, we put it onto a scapegoat. We blame somebody else and we say they're guilty. And in Christianity, we discover that when we take all of our lack and we put it onto Christ, we realize he's innocent. That we're projecting all of this darkness within ourselves onto somebody else and saying they're the problem. And we are faced with the idea that actually, oh my goodness, that's me. That's my stuff that I've put on. Now this happens every day, like with this thing called Karens, which I found out recently, where people put in their own intolerance and hatred and find a group that they can project all of that onto and make fun of some other group. Some people who maybe are nasty, or just having mental health issues, or are just having a stress day. So we project all of our own intolerance and our own dislike onto a group, and we say they're the baddies, and that makes us feel better. And for me, Christianity, structurally speaking, is saying, no, you can't do that. All that stuff you're putting onto them, that's your way of getting rid of your own intolerance. You've got to face that in yourself.
And so you study different religions. You think about, because in the world there are different forms of Christianity, different forms. And you sit back and think about those things and try to make them all work.
Well, no, funny enough, so one is I'm a practitioner first, so and I'm within Christianity, so I set up Christian communities. And I'm not a universalist. I think all religions are doing different things. Right. So my interest is in what's unique about Christianity. And again, coming back to it, is this notion that only in Christianity do you have a God that dies. And St. Paul first brings that idea into the world. Then Luther makes it into a theological concept. And then the philosopher Hegel raises it to the dignity of philosophy. He makes it into a philosophical concept. And here's the kicker. Nietzsche then says it's an existential thing. Everybody has to go through the death of God. So Nietzsche and St. Paul are part of this trajectory of seeing something important in this concept. So it's almost like, by the way, it's like a band. I like U2. If I'm into U2, I'm not really into the music that sounds like every other band. I'm interested in the music that sounds like U2, the music that's their music. In the same way with Christianity, I'm not interested in the things that Christianity shares with everybody else. Like there's loads of them, love your neighbor, belief in God's a biggie, all of that. I'm interested in what does it say that is utterly unique. That's the interesting stuff.
It sounds like you believe that God died.
Yeah.
You believe God died.
Yes, or that means something. Yes, that we can unpack that. That means something.
And so you believe that Jesus was God or is God?
Yeah. Now, what I do, by the way, so when I approach Christianity, I approach it like a psychoanalyst with a dream. If you come to me with a dream, I take it as all true. You tell me your dream, you were chasing a bus, you couldn't catch it on your way to work. I'm a literalist, I'm a fundamentalist. I believe everything in your dream is true because it speaks of something deep in your subjectivity. However, I completely bracket out whether historically there was a bus you were chasing. That's irrelevant. I don't care about that. So in the same way, when I approach Christianity, I'm a fundamentalist. I take it all as absolutely true. But as to whether anything's historically accurate or not, that's irrelevant to me. So in a sense, whenever Paul says, God died, I go, what does that mean? Let's take it completely seriously. Let's say it's completely true. What does it mean? And I think it means, because here's the crazy thing, right? The very moment that Christ cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? The temple curtain rips. So can I give you I want to do this for you because you're a pastor. Can I give you my reading of what I think's happening? And then you tell me what you think.
Absolutely.
Okay. Tell me whether I'm a heretic or not.
Okay.
Tell me whether I'm saved or not, okay? So the Bible starts off with an Oedipal story. So the story of Oedipus, as you probably know, is this guy wants to sleep with his mother. His dad gets in the way, says, you can't sleep with your mother. He doesn't know it, but gets in the way. Oedipus kills the father, ends up with his mother, and it's an absolute disaster, right? Now, Freud loves that story because the mother is a symbol of oceanic oneness, wholeness, going back to the womb, right? The mother is a symbol of you getting everything you want. And then the father is the symbol of what gets in the way. So the story is basically the idea of fulfill your dreams so that you can realize the abject horror of them, right? It's going like, if you actually get everything you want, it won't be good, right? Now, the story of Adam and Eve is an Oedipal story. Adam and Eve walking around the garden, there's a piece of fruit. If they eat this, they will be like God. They will lack the lack. They will know knowledge of good and evil. There's a prohibition. They break through the prohibition. They get the apple, they eat it, and it's an absolute disaster, right? Now, the interesting thing for me is that story sets up a very basic structure of human psychology, which is we're depressed if we don't get what we want. And then when we do get it, like the actor who gets everything they want, it's even worse, the person who wins the lottery. And the serpent is the superego. So the superego for Freud is the one's always saying, you just have to get that. You get that job, and then everything will be great. So the serpent is saying, you just eat that piece of fruit, everything's going to be great.
Right.
Now, grace is the technology of exorcism. Grace is saying you don't have to do anything. Grace is this incredible technology that exorcises the superegoic, serpentine injunction. Now, the reason why I'm saying all of that is the Temple of Jerusalem is like the setup of this. You've got the court of Gentiles, everybody can hang out. You've got the Holy of Holies, that's the place where God is, and you've got a massive curtain, right? And just like a magician's stage, right? And at the very point when Christ cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me? The temple curtain rips. We see in the Holy of Holies where certainty and satisfaction and the absolute exists. There's nothing there, it's just a bare room. So that's the nihilistic moment of conversion where you realize that the thing that makes you whole and complete doesn't exist. But then there's the third part of the trick. And you realize, because God is in the community of people who give each other in love to one another. So now the sacred is not an object that you grasp, but the sacred is discovered in the very work of love itself.
Interesting. So I want to go back to, you believe that Jesus is God.
In theologically speaking, yes.
You believe that?
Well, and I believe it in the sense of that if you take God as absolute reality and you say that Christ is God, then just like if I took a story of Sherlock Holmes, I'm totally in the story of Sherlock Holmes. Whether Sherlock Holmes exists or not is irrelevant. I'm taking it as completely true in the logic of the story, and I'm saying, what's the truth of the story? So in that way, yes.
So what I hear you saying, yes, you believe Jesus is God.
Yes, in the same way as Sherlock Holmes, yeah.
And when Jesus said to the Father, why have thou forsaken me, you believe he was talking to himself?
I believe, yes, that in the narrative, this is him experiencing, God experiencing a forsakenness by God. Yes, this is kind of within the logic of the divine, yeah.
So you believe that when Jesus said to God, the Father, why have thou forsaken me, that was God saying to God, why have thou forsaken me?
Yeah. Yes,
Really?
yeah.
And you figured that out in your philosophy stuff?
No, I think it's plain in the Bible. It's right there. You just quoted it.
And that makes sense to you?
That's crazy. You're mad. I don't.
That makes sense to you?
Yeah, and you know why? Well, how do you, or do you want to say what you think about it first?
Yeah,
Or me?
well, I will, but I'm just
Okay.
trying to figure this out.
You're very good,
From
by the
the
way. You care more about what other people think than saying what you think. I respect that. It's very
oh,
good.
thank you. And so you think that the Father was saying to the Father, Father, why have thou forsaken me? Right?
Yeah.
And so you think the Father left himself?
So basically, what I would say is this, and this sounds weird, but I'll unpack it. Is that this statement of God experiencing a lack in God is a type of quantum indeterminacy. So within, say, quantum mechanics, there is this notion that reality is not at one with itself. So the double slit experiment, where light acts as a wave or a particle depending on how it's observed. In politics, it's called democracy. Democracy is the non-at-oneness of the social body that generates civilization. In biology, it's called evolution, which is the non-at-oneness of the biological organism with itself that generates complexity. In mathematics, it's called incompleteness theorem, which is the non-at-oneness of mathematics that generates itself. So all of these are different ways of saying that reality is divided with itself. They're all expressions of Christianity. So these modern notions in science of evolution, of quantum indeterminacy, of mathematical incompleteness are just scientific ways of saying that reality is not at one with itself. And that idea comes from the Christian tradition.
I noticed that you say a lot of words but no meaning. and in your
I
saying,
warned you.
and in your saying, do people pretend that they understand?
Well, it takes a long time, and sometimes I don't even know if it makes sense. But this is the problem with
But
philosophy.
what I'm trying to figure out,
Okay.
when you're saying all this stuff,
Yeah,
are people nodding and pretending and amen as though they understand?
yeah.
They do that?
Well, I'll give you an example of what I just said.
I
See
know,
if
but
you
give me,
guess-
give me an answer to
Okay.
that first. When you were saying all this stuff,
Yeah.
in response to a question, a simple question, and you're saying all this, and the people going, amen, right on, they are acting as though they understand what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Acting, maybe really. I don't know which. Not many people say amen to me.
And when they're pretending that they understand, do you know that they're not understanding what you're saying?
Sometimes a little bit of glaze in the eyes.
Yeah,
They'll
and so
tell
you
me.
know that they're not understanding. And do you be understanding what you're saying to that question?
Yeah, so I would love to unpack this. This is what, and by the way, I have a friend who's a radio guy in the UK, and he doesn't have me on his show because he says this takes too long to unpack. But the thing with podcasting is we've got more time to unpack. So, for example, when I say to you that in Christianity you have a critique of the scapegoat
But
mechanism.
what I want to do, I want to go back to you believing that God, Jesus is God. And when Jesus said to the Father, Father, why have thou forsaken me? You're saying you believe that the Father left himself.
I'm saying that there is a truth being expressed in that statement. Yes.
And how does that how do you figure that, how do you make that make sense to yourself?
Yes. So basically,
And the thoughts that you get about, are you getting them out of your head so that they can make sense to yourself?
yeah.
Oh.
How do I make sense of it? Well, so the core of my work, and whether it's right or wrong, forget about that, but the core of my work is that we think that God, or the absolute, or ultimate reality, call it whatever you want, is undivided, as in there's something out there that's perfect, whole, and complete. And the secular form of this is commodity satisfaction, or psychedelic enlightenment, or sexual liberation, or techno-salvation. There's something out there that will make me whole and complete. And I say that when you identify with Christ, you identify with one who experiences incompleteness, who experiences an internal forsakenness. And so when you identify with Christ, you're freed from this frenetic pursuit of wholeness, because even God wasn't whole. Even God experienced conflict. Even God experienced forsakenness. And
Why would you think that God experienced conflict?
because of this very thing you quoted, my God, why have you forsaken me? This experience of internal conflict that's central to Christianity.
But when Jesus said that he's the son of the Father, was he saying, I'm the father of the Father,
The son of the
I'm the daddy of the son, or the son of the dad? When he said, I'm the son
Yeah.
and of the Father and I are one, the Father is with me, what did he mean by that?
Yeah, so I would go with the basic Trinitarian idea that God is not one or three. God is a not at one. So God, but you know this is that it's not that you say there's three persons, and it's not that there's one. There is a type of not at oneness within God. That's how I would
Have
describe
you ever
that.
considered that in all your philosophy, thinking and figuring and all that, that you cannot figure out the things of God, and so you just come up with what you get and make it sound real?
Yeah, in fact, I think it's central to even religion in general that there's something about the word God that you cannot grasp. Anselm said this. He said that the very definition of God is that you cannot define God.
So you could be wrong with the Father being the Father and Jesus not being the Son and all that. You could be wrong about that, right?
Be wrong about everything. My goodness, yes,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, about everything. You know.
So you're not assured, you're not self-assured about your philosophy thinking.
Oh no, I am. If I say I think I'm wrong that two, or I could be wrong that 2 + 2 = 4. I don't think I am. I could be. So, I would argue that the philosophy that I explore is a correct way of thinking about reality.
Okay.
But I could be wrong. You know, that's why I love having discussions.
What is postmodernism?
Postmodernism.
How is that different from post-structured thought?
Yeah. So post-structuralism is just the academic way of saying postmodernism. And the funny thing is I'm not a postmodernist. So even though I studied it, I have a PhD in post-structuralism, so I understand postmodernism, I'm not a postmodernist. In fact, I'm quite critical of postmodernism. But yeah, they're very linked. So postmodernism is like the popular word. That's what people use on YouTube or whatever. But the technical academic term is post-structuralism.
Oh, I see. And what does the word modernism mean?
So modernism is connected with the Enlightenment. So it's connected with a certain type of philosophy of reason, of universalism, the idea that we can all have access to the truth, that the modern sciences, we can...
Oh, I see.
And I'm more of a modernist.
No wonder the world's all messed up.
So I'm more of a modernist than a postmodernist. Yeah.
Interesting.
Because postmodernists came in and started saying, well, all of our positions are regional. Like we don't all have access to the truth. You know, I can't speak to you because you're black and I'm white, and so we don't have a universal language. You know, I'm critical of that.
Oh.
I want to say we can all access the truth.
And where does nihilism, where does that fit in with all this all this other stuff?
Oh yeah. Did you say false other stuff? All this false prophecy?
No, that's why I said post stuff.
Post
stuff, not false. But
I know. Nihilism, is just a belief in that there is no meaning to reality. And most philosophers are trying to overcome nihilism. So it's kind of like, so that nihilism is that moment where you experience a profound lack of meaning in reality. But I believe you have to go through that. I believe that's an experience we all have to go through.
you went through that?
Yeah.
You were a nihilism at one time?
Kind of experienced a loss of meaning, but it was a positive loss of meaning. That was my conversion, actually. I realized that everything I valued, all of the things symbolically that I wanted, meant nothing. So it was this moment of pure subtraction, pure nihilism.
Amazing.